Okay, and then we will start right at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Central Time. And I do want to say thank you to all of you for being here, and then I'll introduce Bill Carlson from Data Axle at 10 o'clock. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm really happy to introduce to you Bill Carlson, who is an expert, a product expert with Data Axle, working with Reference Solutions, which, of course, is a suite of business databases that can be used for a variety of things. Reference USA is what it says in the URL. We call it Reference Solutions now, but it is those databases are provided to all Evergreen, Indiana member libraries. And I really would encourage you, as you kind of look at who is here today, also notice who isn't here today and talk this up with your colleagues and people on your staff. This is something that can be used not only for our patrons, which is, we are always thinking, of course, of our patrons, but also for your library and for your friends groups and all sorts of things. This is just really, really value added set of resources. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Bill. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions at some point, please feel free to put that in there. And then I'm going to interrupt him with abandon to get those questions answered at appropriate times. I'm not going to interrupt all the time. So, Bill, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for your time today. So, Reference Solutions, we rebranded. You may remember our name as Reference USA, which is obviously still that URL. We rebranded in October of 2020. So ideally, not a great time, but we'd made all of these connections and plans and marketing processes along the way leading up to and well before we ran into this thing called the pandemic. So we went forward with that rebranding. And if you did know the database as Reference USA, no, it's still the exact same database. Now, we've made some enhancements in those last few years with some filters that we've added to the database, but it is essentially Reference USA just under a new banner. So Data Axle is our now parent company's name. I have worked for Data Axle now for 16 years, but even prior to that, I was a customer of Data Axles. So I worked for another company here in Omaha, Nebraska. That's where the lion's share of us reside. And the company I worked for at that time, we would lose contact with customers, and those customers weren't other businesses, they were individuals, consumers. We would lose contact maybe due to a move, right? They've moved from address A to address B. Maybe they did not fill out that national change of address. So we would send a file, and we did it twice a year. We would send a file to Data Axle, and then they would look at that file and append any of that new address information for Mr. Smith Mrs. Jones, and then send it back to us. That way we could reestablish a connection with that customer. And for us, that was really gravy, right? Because it was a customer that already knew us, even though that, with their move, they weren't thinking of just us when they made that move, and that relationship might be interrupted. So for us, it was gravy. So I've probably worked with Data Axle since about 97 or 98, 1997 or 98. So quite some time. With reference solutions, we know that a lot of the users might be businesses that are looking to get information about other businesses and or consumers in their area. We know that, and I do a lot of work. In fact, I was on a meeting earlier this morning with a SCORE group out of New Jersey. If you're not familiar with SCORE, that's the Senior Corps of Retired Executives, and I'm doing a presentation for them. I do a number of those throughout the calendar year, and they'll obviously train their mentees who happen to be library card holders how to use the database to do their assigned homework, right? Maybe they need to go out and identify all the all of the competitors in that geography where they're going to have their business or where they may have a business. So that might be something they're asked to do. They might be asked to go out and look at opportunities, whether those be other businesses and or consumers. So we know the database gets used a lot for that. I always promote the use of the database when a library has a new patron. And when I say new to the community, they could obviously point to them the database, and if they're interested in getting information about healthcare providers, we have that information in the database, so they could point them towards that resource. Maybe they need a new certain type of doctor. They could look them up in the US healthcare and find out where they graduated from. What year was that? What's their medical specialty? Do they accept new patients? How about Medicare or Medicaid? So certainly a great resource for that. Along those lines, with small businesses and looking at competitors, we also encourage them to use the US historical business information so that they can look at trends and identify those trends that are happening within certain industries. It might be that industry in which they work. So they can certainly do that kind of historical review and get that kind of insight. Not to mention site selection. Have a lot of those individuals that are looking to open a business or maybe open a new location. They can use the US historical business information, which goes back to 1997, by the way. They can use that to identify that address that they're considering moving to. Oh, what, I've gone dark. I, technical problems. Well, why did it do that to me? They can use the database to do that. Oh boy. Oh boy.
If needs be, let me know and I can bring up the interface and and I can drive.
I
Cool.
just didn't
Awesome.
open up any of these and it timed me out. Uh, so using that historical database, they can go in and they can identify that address and do a little radius around it to see if their neighboring businesses have been there over time, or have there been a lot of businesses coming and going. So sometimes the only limitation when using the database might be our imagination. In other words, what it could be used for. So let me cover a couple of housekeeping items real quick. We do offer webinars. You can point anyone toward those webinars, staff and or patrons. We have some great information under the Learning Center. Let me point this out. Of course, our contact information is here. We take phone calls, as it notes, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. And if they contact us in the evening or on a weekend, we'll get back to them that next business day. The information I was going to point out for specifically for you all would be this marketing and training material tab. So we've got bookmarks you can order. We've got this trifold brochure, which you could, in fact, edit. It's editable. And then you can go in and include the information that you'd like to be able to give to a patron when they're interested in using the database. We have some great flyers here. We also have these database overviews that you could point a patron to that's maybe new to using the database. So know that that kind of access is available. And I I like to point out the personal accounts. So we give patrons the ability to download records, which is certainly something they can do. But if they would like to be able to save their search, they can register and then log in and save any of their searches that they might do with these various modules. There is one exception, and that would be the jobs and internships. It didn't make sense to have people saving something this morning that might be gone this afternoon. But otherwise, they can save any of their searches through any of these modules and come back to them at whatever point in time. We save the steps that they use to build that search, and then we'll reproduce it real quickly for them. So the US business information, it's updated monthly. We call verify this information. So when we started in 1972, we had phone books sent from all over across the US. Ma Bell used to do that at their expense. And then we would obviously hire people to do the data entry. As we grew and matured, we then started a calling campaign. So we call those businesses once a year to verify, obviously, the name of the business, that address information. Since they answered the phone, we know that's working. The number of employees, who might be that owner or manager, what other lines of business might they be involved in. So we're capturing that and pushing those updates out live the third Thursday of every month. US Historical is updated at the beginning of every new month. So anything that we updated this last March now becomes a historical record in April. So we'll update that each and every month. Canadian information also goes through that same call process. We update that monthly. Jobs and internships is technically not functioning at this moment. The vendor that we were using, which was Indeed.com, had made some changes in the way that they deliver that file, and we could not accept that. So we're working with another vendor to bring that back online. And the beauty of that, and it can still be used in that same fashion, just not linked through here, is when this is functioning, it gives that information about that job or that internship, but it also links to the business record for that company that's doing the hiring. Now, today, I could be on LinkedIn and decide, you know what, I'm interested in this company ABC. I could look up company ABC and still glean all that information about that business. The US new businesses, these are new business filings that we're getting through the Secretary of State's office, as well as postal processing. So when mail starts to go to that new business address, as well as utility hookups. Not nearly as insightful in terms of the data that's included, right? Because they don't have to include a lot of data. We're capturing that in our verification phone calls, which we do with these. Typically, you're able to do that within 30 to 45 days on these new business filings. And then once we know that they're open, we will give them that full record. That partial information will remain in here for 1 year from time of its original entry. I already touched on the healthcare. So we're going to have those physicians and those dentists information, obviously, as businesses in the US business database. This is going to be about that physician or about that dentist. US standard white pages, just like you would see if you were to open up a phone book. We have added, though, 4 additional pieces of information. We've included the census block group and track number that that household is in. And that's what allows us to overlay then an estimated home income and home value. Other than that, it is just what you would see in the standard white pages. Consumer lifestyles, great resource. We're getting this from surveys that people have completed, memberships people have joined, or subscriptions people might have, voter rolls, credit card processors. Now, I get this question a lot. Bill, do you know how much they spend on their annual travel? I don't have any clue on that. Uh, I just know that they're into travel, and that travel can be looked at from the standpoint of going to the beaches, going on cruises, that kind of activity. I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. Certainly, the Canadian white pages, just like those standard white pages for the US, and then the US new movers, new homeowners. This is a great resource that, yes, the library can even use. I used to cover 10 different states, and I always promoted libraries to use this because they can learn about those people that are brand new to their community, uh, and gain that insight about them. Maybe they want to do some outreach. I have some libraries that will use the US Business Database to identify local realtors, and then they'll partner with those realtors to give those new homeowners that have bought a home, that's these folks, those new homeowners, a gift bag from the library that includes a mug and a pen and a form to fill out for their library card. So certainly can use the database for your own uses. And let me open this up real quick. So whenever I open up any module, it's always going to bring me to this quick search page. In this case, I'm going to forego that. And let's do this. I'm going to go to this county. So you can see that I have Franklin County open there. Do we have, Ruth, maybe you can tell me, do we have anyone from Franklin County that might be with us today?
See anybody that I know immediately from Franklin County.
Okay, well, I was just going to say hi. So we have these relocation details, and I really like using both of these, and I'll tell you why. Let's pretend that Franklin County from end to end is 45 miles. So I'm going to tell my system, I don't want to see anybody that's moved from within 50 miles. So I don't want to get records for people who've moved around the county or within any communities. I just want to look at those people that are truly new to Franklin. So I'll say 50 miles. You can see I've done that before. And I'll say, let's go out to 3,003 miles. Notice the default is always 6 months, could be as recent as last week or within the last year. Let's look at the last year and see how many folks may have moved into Franklin from at least 50 miles out.
And I want to double check too. So it's showing Franklin, Indiana, and I know you have county checked, but there is a Franklin City, Indiana, as well as a Franklin County.
Yep,
Are we sure that this is the
we
Franklin County
are.
because it's selected? Okay, great.
Because I'm only on county. If I wanted to do the city, I'd have to do my selection with the city state.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Great
Thank you.
question, though, right? There are a lot of those communities that are both county and city named, right? So
Yes.
I have 100 of those folks that have moved in the last year from at least 50 miles out. Now, if I wanted to alter this, I could certainly do so. Let's see if I drop it down to 40. Does that increase that number? So it did by 13. So you can see how you can change these filters as you wish in order to either produce more or fewer records. Just depends on what someone might need. I also have, for example, these home ownership details. So it lists that there are these three details. There's actually a fourth one. We didn't make it queryable because we didn't think anybody'd want to. It would be not enough information, not available, right? So if I needed to find out about confirmed homeowners or probable homeowners, let's say that I have a lawn care business Wouldn't I love to know about these new people? So how many of them do I have out of this 113? I have 64 new opportunities that I could send a mailer out to let them know about my business. I'm going to remove this though, so I have that larger number. I'm going to go back here and click on view results. There are my results. Rarely are you ever going to see a phone number listed because that's not something that's required when you fill out that national change of address. But I have obviously that name, address, city, state, zip, and then that home ownership. So I've got some probables. There's a not available. I've got some renters here. Just depends on what you need to be able to see. I can change this up if I'd like to. Maybe this move distance is more important to me. I want to get a sense of how far away these people have moved from to come into my community, my area. Bingo, I can do that. In fact, I have some libraries that they actually will have their GIS analysts in the county use the information that's contained in here. And let me show you where that's at. So we'll open up Ryan's here. I have that name and address, moved from 421 miles away, probable homeowner. They're interested in using this census block group and census tract number, and that way they can pinpoint where all these new movers are coming into. The library that I'm thinking of, which is a library down in Georgia, they're having their GIS analyst gather this intel so that they can look at what they have available in those areas because that county is experiencing quite a bit of growth because the Braves moved their ball field from downtown Atlanta out to Cobb County, Georgia. So, as you can imagine, lots of new homeowners, lots of new building going on, lots of business parks coming up, etc. So, they want to make certain that they're prepared for all this growth and have services available, and services maybe including a new library building.
I want to point out something interesting here. You may not know this, Bill, but people who actually live in this region, which
Yes,
would be Batesville Memorial Public Library, Franklin County Public
right?
Library District, and some others are might be keying into an idiosyncrasy. And this is a good thing also that may be useful in your library. Of course, you did a search for Franklin County, and there would be an assumption that it would be Franklin County. But looking at this address, what I see here is that this is a Batesville. And so this may be a good opportunity too to see where there may be not really overlaps in library districts, but overlaps in perceived library districts and how you might also work with your neighbors in some manner. So I thought it was
Excellent,
interesting that you pulled this specific record up.
right?
It's an interesting area in the state of Indiana, and there are many quote unquote interesting areas in the state of Indiana.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out, right? I mean, and you all know those nuances of your, areas that you obviously service. So, great way to be able to look at that. Each of our records is always going to have this location map as well, because we have that latitude and longitude embedded in the background. So we know where those are located. Obviously, the same would be true with businesses. So, that's what you're going to find with that new mover, new homeowner information. And I guess, whether I have some libraries in those larger areas where you might see more movement, they'll actually download this information quarterly and send out postcards to those individuals inviting them to the library. I have some that do it every 6 months, and others do it right before September when it's new library card member sign up month. So just depends on how you might want to take advantage of this. And speaking of downloads, it will always tell you at the bottom how many downloads can be done at a time. So think of these 250 records as batches, if you will. I can do as many batches as I'd like with 250 at a time. So in order to get all those, and this is true for any of the modules, To get all those, I can put a check mark next to, in this case, first name, and then I can advance to the next page. 250 would be 10 pages because there are 25 records per page. I'll stop there. Then I can select my download. In this case, it's going to always ask me, do I want comma delimited, Excel, or tab delimited? Most will go with comma delimited simply because it is mailing label friendly. And then, of course, you have a step 2 here. Do I want summary of just this information? Do I want the entire detailed record, or do I want to customize it somehow? Then my other 2 options are, would I like to email these records to myself, and maybe I'm working with a partner, I could do that. Or do I want to be the keeper of the downloads? Some people like that too. So let me go back. Any questions? If not, I want to jump right back to the home page and go into the business database. Okay, I'm jumping. And I can always go back if you need me to. Let me go to US businesses. Again, I'll come to quick search. I can look for a particular company name. I can look for an executive by first name, last name. I can look at all businesses within any given city, state, or even do a reverse phone number lookup. Ruth, would you give me a medium-sized community there in Indiana? I wouldn't want to do Indianapolis simply because of its size.
Sure. How about Plainfield?
Plainfield.
Mhm.
Boy, deal. Plainfield, Indiana. I'm going to view my results whenever I'm using quick search. These are only going to be my verified records. I can get to 2 other record types once I go into advanced search. So across Plainfield, I have 1,685 businesses. The tool I want to emphasize here is this charts tool. What it will do is make sense of those businesses by type of business. So when I select that charts, it's going to look at that entire community and it's going to break them down based on the SIC code. That's the Standard Industrial Classification Code. It's an old coding system that, as far as Uncle Sam is concerned, has been retired in place of the NAICS codes, but we've kept it alive because we've made it more granular than it ever was when in use by the federal government. They only had a maximum of 4 digits. We have a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 9. So it can get very granular. This is my top 7 across Plainfield. So that equals this 347. So I've got restaurants at the top, followed by physicians. This is the complete reverse in my community. Physicians are at the top, then dentists, nurse practitioners, insurance, real estate, and physical therapists. So you're seeing these physicians and these dentists, etc., because they're all 1099 guys and gals. So I give you that view. And by the way, this can all be printed off or it can be made part of a PowerPoint. And then I give you a full report. Notice it's 25 pages in length. We always give you that primary SIC code, the description for it, and then, of course, the number of records that apply. And notice we do have automated teller machines. And I point that out because oftentimes users won't necessarily want to have access to that information. So we can virtually exclude anything that we might want to leave off the list. So great way to be able to look at those business types. I could switch it up to sales volumes numbers and or number of employees. So always available to me. And that's just one way by which to use those charts. So I'll give you some others here in a moment. I'm going to revise my search. It's going to bring right back to that quick search. I'll go into advanced search. By the way, additional filters, which you'll always see on all the modules. That's the back door into advanced search. So either one is going to produce this page. So first things first, there's those verified records. That's the default. But I do have unverified businesses. As it notes here, not fully verified, may not be accurate. That doesn't mean just because we didn't reach those businesses that they're not valid businesses, though. So I do point this out to folks that if they want to search this universe from time to time, I know insurance agents love to use the database. They sometimes want to be able to look in those unverifieds because they may know about a business or two that's in an area and they want to see if they can find that record. So can always include that. Then we have the closed businesses. The closed businesses is a universe that grows throughout the year, right? Because we obviously don't have as many closed records in January as what we'll have by the time we get to December. So once we reach the end of the year, this starts all over again, simply because now we also have that information in our historical business module. So that's why it continues to go through that metamorphosis. So I have these various filters, and people often look and go, oh my God, there's a lot of filters I'm going to have to fill out. By all means, they don't have to fill out many. I would say on the low end, they might be using 2 or 3. On the higher end, 4 to 6. Really not many more than that in most cases. So we'll always give them company name and that legal name. They could use this as a filter. We saw that under a quick search where I could look for one company. I could do multiple companies here. So if I wanted maybe IBM for one of those companies, I could do that, add that to my mix. And then if I wanted another, maybe I want Delta, I can add that to the mix and then pick my geography and just get those 2 records. But like I say, in most cases, people are going to want as many companies as they can get hold of. So, but they could use that. They can always use this executive information as well. We know that the executive filter gets a lot of use. And if somebody wanted only, let's say they only wanted records with an owner present, they could certainly make that their selection and only get to those owners, foregoing all others that either A, don't have a listing for an executive, or B, it's a different executive. So we do have executive gender and ethnicity. We've recently also added under the ownership link here, female, veteran, and minority owned businesses. And these are coming through the SBA PPP loans that these folks have gotten. So another way to search for those types of executives. Business type is generally searched for by using a keyword, simply because people don't maybe have SIC codes or know what it's used for, but they can always say, hey, I need construction, or I need manufacturing, or I need X. They can always go that route. We do also have this major industry group, which is just the SIC codes. And it's just as Uncle Sam had set them up initially. So here's the initial setup that Uncle Sam has been using since the mid-30s. I'll use construction in this example. So if I click this plus symbol, it's going to give me a definition for those 2-digit codes. And there they are. So I've got general contractors, I've got heavy construction, special trade. Bingo. If I'm looking for something related to general contractors, maybe I'm looking for handyman services. I can click that plus symbol. Again, this is as granular as Uncle Sam would go. But by adding those 2 additional digits, I can get to those handyman services, as you'll note right here. In fact, I did a presentation for a library out in New Jersey last year, and one of the librarians had asked me to bring this up, and I brought it up, and she said, now, so these handymen, this is all they do. I said, well, we can tell the system that should be their primary line of business. And you do that by scrolling down here to the bottom and selecting that. So I can drive in just those businesses that are handyman services. And
We
then
have a
she,
couple questions in here
oh,
real
you bet.
quickly. So this is a great question from Janice. Uh, this may sound goofy, but I'd like to see where mailboxes are located. Is that a possibility? I can always find a post office, but if a blue mailbox is closer, that that would be cool. So there's that
And
question.
you know what? Mailboxes aren't, they're going to be, so if I go into post office, let's do this. Let's try a search. I've never done this search, so this will be a first. Let's go with post office. It would have to be off of that, right? So let's see, because all businesses, for profit or not for profit, so there's mailboxes wholesale. So those are the boxes that you would buy.
Right, right.
Mailbox
But I wonder if it wouldn't be somehow
rental.
related to post office.
You wonder what?
If it wouldn't be related to the post office, like be a mini location.
Right?
Oh, oh, wait, there's some stuff there.
That's what I wanted to get here and
Mm.
see if there might be something that might, now it's going to get further away. Uh, to see if there was something that might give us. Those are the post offices.
And those are the big
Yeah.
sorting centers. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's select. Anybody know where there might be a post office blue box?
Mm.
Because I can't say blue box here.
Right. They've removed so many of them, which is
Right,
problematic.
right. Just for the heck of it.
Wait,
I
here's
want to
it.
see.
Let's see.
Let's see.
Lowell, it
So
says Lowell has one.
Lowell,
Mm-hmm.
is that a city?
It is.
Okay. That's my given first name. Lowell.
That's how the city is spelled as well.
So when using the city state, just type in the name and select go. And then there obviously, oh, there's a few of us around. Oh, look at there. So I can select, oh, let's see what I have. I have two. Let's see. Ah, so this is probably the post office in
Yep.
Lowell. Yeah. Yep. So probably not on, I can produce red boxes, but I
Right,
can't,
because it's a company. Yeah.
right. Yep.
And that's their retail
Because,
outlet. Yeah.
right. That's a retail. Yeah. But not a blue box. Sorry, no blue box. Bonkers. uh, but you get the idea. You can put in whatever type of business you might be looking for, and then obviously produce results related to that. So, great way to be able to do that. And thank you for that post office box. Now I know what to say when that's asked another time. No, that's not it.
Fantastic.
So geography speaks for itself, phone information speaks for itself. We ask this question of those businesses when we're making those phone calls, and about 72% will give us an exact number. Those that don't, we look at that SIC code that they're under, their peers, and we'll assign a range as it relates to number of employees. So that's your clue that that business chose not to answer that question for whatever reason. Sales volumes, if it's a private company, that's always modeled. You could imagine asking that question of John Doe business owner, right? How much money do you think you're going to make this year? Uh, and that phone call would probably end suddenly, right? So we model that looking at how long they've been in business, again, how many employees they have, the lines of business that they might be in. They might do two, three, four things, right? Also, where they're physically at, because we're going to allow for differences with taxes. And then we do get information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as well. If it's a publicly traded company, that information would come from their 10K. And notice, and I like to point this out, under headquarters and branch, we do have two other types of businesses. And let me show you that. So subsidiaries and or single locations. I like to point this out. So this is my total number of verified records across the US, 18 million plus. Let's see how many are single locations. Look at this number. When they talk about small businesses, and granted, these aren't necessarily all small businesses, but what I could do is I could say by number of employees, how many, and these we would certainly call small businesses, how many of them make up this universe? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. So small businesses certainly do drive our economic engine. So I can always look at that kind of information. I can get to home-based businesses, certainly those government offices. We give you financial options by which you could use as filters. Again, if it's a private company, these business expenditures are modeled. We give some special selects. I like to point out years in the database. For those folks that are looking for newer businesses, I would encourage them to use that versus year established, simply because this isn't 100% fill rate, but we know how long we've had them. So certainly a great resource to use. Professionals, all are one. We added this several years ago at the request of some of our library partners. They had shared that not in necessarily every case did someone need to download records, or when they did want to download their records, they maybe didn't need every doctor in an office or every attorney in an office. So by changing this from the all to one, you'll produce fewer records. And if there's a mailing that's going to be done, obviously it will cost less money. And then we just added mailing addresses to include only records with a highly deliverable address. So just like Santa, USPS knows which businesses have been naughty and which businesses have been nice. So if somebody wanted to, again, assure that that mail piece is going to get in the hands of those businesses they're interested in reaching out to, that's a great way to do that. And it's another money saver for them because obviously they have to adhere to certain requirements and rules with USPS bulk postage rates, right? So if they violate those rules where the USPS is returning mail to them, they're not going to maintain that bulk rate discount.
There was a question in here, and there were two questions. Um, and I think the one might have been answered kind of, but Janice asks, is there a distinction between a storefront business and home base, which I think that has been answered. But
Yep.
then the question being, what if you don't want home-based businesses in your search?
Well, if I don't want them, I'm going to select this driver and I can exclude home-based businesses from any output. So if that would be helpful, bingo, I can do that. And
So do we need to have, oh, so
go
you
ahead.
selected it
I
over on the
selected it.
left-hand side, and
Yep,
that then enabled those options. Oh, I see.
exactly. Yep,
Fantastic. Thank you. Great.
exactly. So any of these filters, that's the starting point. Then I have to make a decision. Do I want it or not?
And Janice just said that they applauded out loud.
Oh, excellent. And speaking along those lines of home base, notice I did mention earlier we have those ATMs and we also have kiosks. So if somebody did not want those kinds of records, they could choose to omit that as well. So you can omit anything. Anything you can even omit keywords using a keyword search. So if maybe you didn't want bars to show up in your list, you could choose to omit those. It just depends on what you might need. You can even omit previously saved searches. And if you do that and wanted to see just the new records that were added since you were last in your saved search, you could choose to omit that saved search and then build it just like the first one. And that way you'll get just the new records. Kind of a cool way to trick the system. So let's do this. I like to use restaurants, not because I want you to all start thinking about lunch, but just because there are always so many. Uh, I'm going to search for those restaurants. This is my all-inclusive. Notice I can get to using a 7-digit number. I can get to certain kinds of restaurants, or I have a 9-digit for the various chain restaurants. So if somebody needed to see that kind of insight, they could. But I'm just going to go with the all-inclusive for restaurants. And then what county is Indy in?
Marion.
Marion County. So let's go. Marion. I'm going to update my count. So I have 2,300 restaurants across Marion County. Now I want to point this out. Again, I can tell the system I need this to be their primary line of business. So, in other words, why they're open. Think about for a moment, if you will, businesses that have a restaurant in them, but that's not why they're open. And I think, Ruth, didn't you say like there was some kind of gift card you were going to give out to the person that might get this right? Is that?
I did not say that, but I was
Oh,
actually thinking of a specific place that would be like this. So some
you
of
tell
you
me.
on the East Central side are familiar with East Central. Oh, we're in Marion County. I was thinking east side of the state,
Oh,
Warm Glow
gotcha.
Candle. That's in Wayne County. So if you want to change your search to Wayne County and then
Do we want to add Wayne or get and or just get
I
rid
just
of
so I can
Marion?
imagine that there were some people in the audience saying, "Why are you looking up Wayne, Marion County? There's no Evergreen Library in Wayne County
Oh,
or in Marion County."
right.
So, but
I'm
now
I'm
we're in
I'm
Wayne
needing
County and there
numbers.
are.
Right. I'm needing more numbers than 100 though. That's why.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh
then go ahead and add Marion back.
yeah. There was method to my madness.
Yeah, it's there.
So I know I have that 1,700, and that's because I changed it to primary only. So we got rid of businesses like bowling alleys that have a little restaurant in them, but that's not why they're open. So I
Cool.
can go into those results. Now I can chart this again. Maybe I have a product I want to be able to sell to restaurants. And I knew that there'd be a lot in Marion County. I can then go into this chart feature, and the first thing it will do is break down the cities because I already told it I'm only looking at restaurants in Marion County. So I've got my Indianapolis and then the others, right? And then I've got a full report down there. So I can look at that. Of course, I could do it against sales volumes and or number of employees. Always be able to put that on a PowerPoint or print that off. Plus, and this is one that I know lending institutions love to see this. It's our heat map. It's a density map, and it will take that information for Wayne or for Marion. Now you got me on Marion or Wayne. uh, it this then displays the density of those restaurants. So where it's red here in these areas, lots of restaurants in those areas, yellow less, green less,
I'm
and where
looking
there's
at my
no
neighborhood and there are
are
not very many
holes.
restaurants there, and it's
Yeah,
quite
there
disappointing.
are no records there, obviously. And then it gives you this breakdown by the top 50 zip codes in the area, or almost 50. So another great way to be able to look at the database. And I want to show you this. I'm going to revise this search slightly. I'm going to kick the county out and get out of there, county. And I'm going to add number of employees. And I'll grab these three ranges. I'm going to open my map. Give me your zip code where you are at there, Ruth, because I want to, again, show this map tool.
Hmm.
Oh, no.
46204.
It's not going to work for me. It's acting up on me. I have poltergeist, I swear, on my computer.
Oh,
There should be a map of the United States here that we're
okay.
looking at. Clearly, there isn't. Uh, Doggone it. Bad U map. I'm going to do something. I'm going to try and play on your imagination. I'm going to use my community
All right.
just so you can see, and it'll be easy for me to demonstrate. So this is Omaha. And I can tell you that because I have this state boundary. So here's Iowa over here, Missouri River following here, and then there's Nebraska. Here be Omaha. I have these various boundary selections that I can overlay. For example, like zip codes. So here are all the zip codes in Omaha. I can click in any of these zip codes that I'd like, and it will produce results based on the number of businesses that are in those areas that match my criteria. So I asked for restaurants, I asked for them with certain numbers of employees, and obviously in these zip codes. So one way to be able to look at an area geographically and get some insight about it. I also can do this. I know everybody's going to want to run to Omaha. It looks so white there. It snowed today. I have the ability to draw my own shape, or I could even use a true radius. So with drawing a shape, you decide where you want to begin, anywhere on the map. In fact, there might be a golf course right here. And then you decide which direction you want to go, another click to change direction. You get the idea. Then once you're ready, you double click, finalize it. There's my 205 results that are in this area.
I wonder
I
if you select one of those different views, if that might actually populate something there.
Oh,
Up.
I wish.
Oh, okay.
It's no, it's not. Just remember Omaha right here. And here's my true radius, slightly different. Both of these options will go out 150 miles. So I'll click, hold it, drag it away. And you can see I'm out to about 4 miles right there. In that area, I've got 315 results. I can even alter information within the shape that I've created. So if I did not want an area, maybe I didn't want this area. There are 32 results out of this 315 that are in there. I can double click in that area, then ask the system to exclude it, which it will. When I'm ready, I can say done, view those results. I've got my 283, and of course, we know there are 283 results that are in Omaha. And we always have this corporate structure, so anybody looking for that kind of insight can get to it. Look at, let's do this. Let's take this Arby's, because this be true for any Arby's anywhere. So it's that Omaha Arby's. They report up to this Arby's restaurant management group out of Atlanta, but they're ultimately owned by this company, which is a private equity firm also out of Atlanta. They have a total of 44 subsidiaries and over 41,000 branches. So they're sizable. They are a private company. And if I want to see these other subsidiaries, I can collapse or close that. And there they are. So as you look at that list, I'm sure that you're probably seeing a lot of businesses that you're familiar with. Buffalo Wild Wings has a lot of locations. Dunkin' Donuts, they just brought them on in October of 2020. Did anybody know that Hardee's and Carl's Jr. were related?
Absolutely,
They're
because we don't have
cousins,
Carl's Jr. here,
right? Neither
but
do
we
we,
get similar food from
right?
Hardee's.
Yes. Now, do you all have this deli, Slotsky's Deli? Do you have them?
I don't believe so. No.
Great deli. This happens to be the last company that was added to their portfolio, which was about 18 months ago now. Two Men in a Truck, a moving company. You probably have them
Mhm.
in your neck of the woods. So you can always get to this corporate insight. You know, if I had a product that I wanted to try to sell to Arby's, wouldn't it be great to know that the same company owns Sonic or any of these other restaurant chains, Jimmy John's? So it just depends on what a person's need might be. And again, I can download these 250 records. I can chart that information. I can do whatever I need to do with that. Any questions on the business information? Because we're dancing awfully close to the top of that hour.
I don't see any new questions in chat.
May I peek into the new movers, or excuse me, the consumer lifestyles?
Yes,
All right.
because
Again,
we're gonna connect. I'm gonna make a connection for our librarians
oh,
in just a
good.
moment as well.
You tell me where to drive. Should I go
No
to
need.
adventure?
When I share, you just go do exactly what you want to do. It's a
Okay.
different kind of connection.
It's a different kind of connection. Okay. What was that first county I looked in the new movers, new homeowners?
I think it
What
was
was it?
Franklin, wasn't it?
Franklin. Okay, we'll do Franklin. Let's do Franklin. And I'm going to change it from contacts from all to one. I want one primary head of household.
Janice comes up with a really good point here too. That makes the comment that I just realized I can look and see if a store I used to go to in Nashville, Indiana has moved or not. I just assumed it went out of business. But that is a great thing. Not all businesses that leave do go out of business. Some do move. And
Exactly.
that's a great way to check.
And you could do that both in certainly the US business database, right? Because that would be the current one. But you could also, if you had a question, wonder when that happened, you could go into the historical, right? And see that as well. So I'm looking in Franklin, one per. You mentioned earlier about libraries using this in conjunction with their friends of the library. I can tell you that lots of friends of the library like this link to charitable donors. So I can identify charitable donors and notice there is a scoring mechanism that's at play here. So whenever I'm trying to produce results for charitable donors, it's going to be related to this scoring. If they're a zero, they're not going to show because they have no interest in that particular category. If they're a nine, however, they're definitely going to show. We'll only display records for people who score a six or higher. So they're active. For example, I used to own a best friend uh, who, when he passed, obviously because I then stopped buying dog food, I eventually fell out of the database as a dog lover within 2 to 3 months. So if we're looking at charitable donors, I have across the county 2,786. I have a library in Georgia that used this resource. They were in need of raising funds for new library signage. Their signage had been damaged in a storm, couldn't recoup its entire cost through insurance. They went through the Friends of the Library. They needed to raise about $5,000. They ended up raising eight. So if this kind of insight is important to you, we're going to have that name, address information. Now, some are going to have phone numbers, some are not. I do get this question. Do you know if these are cell numbers? Don't know. Don't know if they're landlines or cell numbers. Do you know what charities that Edgar might donate to? Don't know that either. Know that he's involved in that, but don't have specifics in terms of those charities. But I'm going to have that name and address information. Obviously, everything we've seen about Edgar appears married, been in this home for about 19 years. There's that neighborhood information. So we're getting that Census Bureau data, and then that's what allows us to then overlay these estimated household incomes and home value. And then lastly would be those lifestyle indicators. The only reason this record came in is because of their scoring in that 6 to 9 range for charitable donors. Now, just because you see one here for like home decorating, don't assume that that means that they score in that 6 to 9 range, because we might do another search and Edgar may not come up in that category simply because maybe he's a 5 in that category, right? So just because you see that there, don't assume that that's means that he's going to show up in that other realm. In fact, I'm going to show you. So notice no dog lovers, pet lovers, anything listed here. So let's do this. I'm going to go back to my result and I'm going to revise my search slightly, because you can select multiple listings here. So I'm going to say dog lovers. We know that Edgar was not a dog lover, and I'm going to link charitable donors to dog lovers. And I'm going to do that by showing more options. And then instead of, this is the default, showing any that match, I'm going to show all that are selected that match. So now I'm going to have fewer records. Notice what this looks like. So there's 775. If I go to view those results, notice Edgar is nowhere to be seen, simply because he's not also a dog lover. I told the system they need to be both charitable donors and dog lovers. Questions? Oh, I stopped
That's
with.
great. That's great. Thank you. Any final questions for Bill? If you do come up with questions, of course, you can use the links on the Data Axle site. You can also email myself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to email Bill and or Andra. Andra is our account manager and gets us connected with all of the things. I'm going to also quickly, if I'm going to take the share back real quick
Okay, I'll
here.
stop sharing.
Let me make sure that I don't have all these other things going on. So I want to show you all where this is showing up right now in your Aspen catalog. And I'm just going to go to another Aspen catalog real quickly. Plainfield is the one that comes to mind. And so all of you have now an Aspen website. And it's going to be listed under resources and then additional resources. It's also going to show up in certain searches that patrons do as a result, but it's just a matter of clicking through and then opening the resource. There was a question from Amanda from Lowell that they moved their Data Axle Reference Solutions resource to another website. And if you do that, it's just a matter of communicating that new URL so that can be added. The
Yes.
way that people are able to access this resource is through a URL referrer, essentially. And then the other thing I did want to remind you is that this falls under the webinar LAU policy. So this is eligible for LAU. You got to scroll all the way down on this website. I'm going to go ahead and put the link into chat. And then there is this, how do I document LAUs for live and archived virtual conference sessions or webinars? And there's a sample LAU and some instructions for that. The connection that I wanted to make for you has to do with those tools that are available in reference solutions and those tools that are available to our librarians in Library IQ. So there are cardholder maps and things that have to do with that in Library IQ. And then, of course, there are the business maps and people maps in reference solutions. And I am not entirely sure how you might use this, but I can envision there being a way to perhaps create a partnership with somebody, a business that is in an area that has a lot of cardholders or doesn't have a lot of cardholders. You do have to have an account for LibraryQ. There is likely somebody in your library that has it, and that's kind of one of those things. Figure out who has it, what your administrator wants you to do, and is there a way to either work with somebody on staff, get your own account, share an account, however. But I do see a connection between these two tools, between Reference Solutions and Library IQ. If there's a need, I can really see that working for outreach things for the library. Okay, that's all that I have. I want to thank Bill again for taking the time. This recording is going to be available. Melissa, hit me up with an email and we will talk real quickly. And the rest of you and Melissa also have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bill.
You bet. Bye-bye.